It's a guy, a car, and a podcast.
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 Buckle up.
Buckle up.
Buckle up.
Buckle up, y'all.
Oh yeah, that should work. That's good.
Would you like a lap blanket or anything?
Is there like a massage that happens at some point? Because kind of wouldn't be surprised.
Hat or no hat? Is it okay if I wear the hat?
I don't know. if
Cover
you
my
wear
baldness?
that.
Okay.
Are you
Oh yeah.
bald or bald?
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Especially like, yeah.
like last time I saw you, it was just like it looked like you were full haired and just kept it real short, and I'm like, let me get on
Yeah,
this.
it's always been headed there. just come to embrace it.
What's up, Brian Lehnhof?
How are you?
Oh, good man. How are you?
Good.
This is a treat. This is so fun because
Yes, good. I apologize, I've been sick, so you were drinking a lot.
I just played a show last night, so my throat's all like in need of care. TLC.
Yes, it's flu season. It's good fun.
Fun, both personally and professionally, I imagine, it's for you.
It's good job security, except for they all get me sick.
How bad can flus get? Like, what's the worst that you see in...
Well, typically there's like certain populations that it gets, and every year it's different. There's like these different strains, and the whole idea of the flu shot is you try to predict which strain it's going to be. But they pick three strains to vaccinate against. But then sometimes the flu vaccine's not very effective because if it's not those three that it's protecting against, so it varies every year. But this year's been a lot of people, but not a lot of sick people.
Oh.
I had a girl yesterday that was pregnant and was pretty sick with it, but it's usually the elderly, super young, and like
I'm pregnant. I mean, her body is mostly trying to construct a human and not really worried about
she's fighting her own internal disease. But so it's usually someone's got some sort of immune problem that a little bit more susceptible. And then the 20-year-old men, they really struggle with it too. Like we call it the man flu.
Really?
Oh yeah, they're the loudest, the most complaining.
Oh yeah.
But also the healthiest. It really works out well. They have a good prognosis. But no, it's good. It's good. But it seems like you're sick for like 3 months.
Wow.
But it all works out.
I can't remember the last time that I have felt consistently sick for like 3. I don't think ever. I think usually,
Maybe
a couple days, couple weeks, maybe.
Maybe I'm just getting old. Actually, maybe that's what this is. They just blame it on the flu. One of the two.
So there's a lot that I don't know about you.
Yeah.
Which is why this becomes fun.
Yeah.
Because not only do people
I like to keep a lot of things to myself. I like to... No.
You do seem... I wouldn't say private, but you do seem deflective. Okay. Like, the whole time that I've known you, you just have this, like, amazing sense of humor and this really quick wit. And I feel like I've never seen you, really like sit back into praise or any of that. Like you just seem to try to always keep the conversation on other people, keep the attention on other people. And it's made me like even more curious about you because I'm like, that must mean there's some really...
Maybe it's just because I'm awkward. And so like...
You think so?
I feel like the older...
Has anyone not you described you to you as awkward?
I don't know. I feel like I'm awkward.
Why?
I don't know if anyone else has ever said it. Probably because I'm awkward. They can't tell me. Like, how do you tell someone that's awkward they're awkward? That'd be awkward. But, like, the idea being, like, maybe... I don't know. I don't know how to, like... It's weird. Like, it's even, like, as a parent now, like, people say things about your kid, and you're like, oh, I don't know how to respond to that. So I'm just going to, like, just deflect it, I guess. You know what I mean? And so, I don't know. And part of it might just be my... I feel like my life is so much different than the average person. Like, I don't have a normal job where, like, there's, you get to this age in your life or, whatever, and you're like, you have people that you're on the same path with, like, you all go to work, you all come home at 5 o'clock, you go, do the same things at the same time, you see the same people at the gym every morning or whatever, and it's like, last night I was at the gym at midnight, and then, the next day I'm there at like 9 o'clock in the afternoon, and like I go to the kids' school and I'm hanging out with all these moms, because everyone else has real jobs that are like working 8 to 5, and I'm like, I go to work at 6 o'clock tonight or whatever. It's different. So it's like, I feel like a lot of times it's weird. I don't find my specific like analog in life, if that's a way to say that, where it's like, so I feel like that makes me a little awkward, and maybe it's all perceived stuff. I don't know.
So,
but even on the mission, I was weird, right? I mean, I was awkward. Like,
I don't think so, and I'll tell you this: as like I knew you before knowing you because you worked in the office, and so you were at a lot of the mission meetings, and I think I might have gotten phone calls from you a few times just about like the vehicle or whatever. And I was thinking about it leading up to this interview, and I was like, I think one of the greatest compliments that I can pay to you as a human being is that, not knowing you terribly well on the mission, I liked you so much that I mimicked you to other people outside of your presence. Like, I had an Elder Lehnhof impression that anytime you come up, I would lean into this like, hello, it's Elder Lehnhof, like this little voice thing. And it wasn't because I didn't like you or because I thought you were awkward or stupid. It's because you were just such a fun... You just had such a great energy, and were obviously such a great missionary, and so it was just... I just was... I don't know, I guess like enamored by you in a way where I was just... it was like, you see a great actor or something, you just kind of... Kristen Bell has that problem, apparently, where like, if she hears a voice or an accent or something that interests her, she can't not try to do it quietly to herself. Like, she'll just try to Australia or whatever, so...
well, thank you, I think.
From the get-go.
Not deflecting. But that happened with a lot of, part of that. Like, I remember when I first went into the office, like, I remember calling people and they're like, who are you? Like, because, like, I mean, my whole mission was completely atypical. Like, so I was thinking about this. Well, my first area I was in for 7 months, 2 companions. My next area was in the same ward. And that was the office. So it was like, I'd been to one one geographical zone conference. Yeah. We had 3 zones, or not zones, but zone conference groups, Yeah. And so, like, the people that hadn't been in that, was it South Zone? Whatever. Like, the one that was in Green Tree, like, if you weren't in that zone conference group for that 7 months, you would have never met me. Like, if we weren't in the MTC and you weren't in that zone conference, like, we would have never met. So, like, 2/3 of the mission I didn't know. And I remember calling people and they're like, who are you? Are you really a missionary? I'm like, I think so. Like, I have the badge and stuff. Who of the Pittsburgh missionaries were you in the MTC with? Oh, so I was with Elder Russell, and I don't remember first names on a lot of these guys, but Dr. Elder Nomiyama, was that his name? Oh, that sounds familiar. And Russell Jensen. John, the short one. Yeah, glasses. I love him. Yeah, yes. Yeah, he was awesome in the MTC. During that awkward, like, everyone's like figuring out, like, oh, he was perfect. He's like you though. He's super funny and very deflective. Like, I remember him and I both, like, we would, like, it was during that, like, what was it? You had, like, I think it was on preparation day. You had, like, that weird time, like, we could go to the gym and stuff, and like everyone would go do like the same activities, and me and him were like, why are they doing that? Like, so we would go do our own thing. But Russell Nomiyama. I think that's the main ones I remember. Not probably yet. But and then I never like interacted with any of them after that. Like, I was never in even a zone with any of them. So. But the irony being, like, once you got to hit the office, you were all over the mission because you follow presidents all over me. So you were everywhere. Because that was I only had 3 areas. My whole mission. Like, so I was in Beachview for 7 months. I was in the office. But 7 months. The office for 7 months, and then Cranberry for 7 months. That was it. Then I went home. One of those must have been a little bit longer, but yeah, like. Which companions did you have in Cranberry? So that's where I had the most companions. Really? It started to get almost normal. I think I had 4 in 7 months. Oh, wow. So I went there with Elder Prieto. Okay. Danny Prieto. Which is awesome because, like, his family grew up in Provo next to my sister, like, in the same building, like, area, like, they were across the way, and so they knew each other really well. But anyways, and then Evans, Brandon Evans?
Yeah.
And Seth Losser, which was the highlight of it. And then,
I'm glad you hear you say that.
and then, maybe that was it, maybe it was just 3.
So Blosser sent you home.
Yeah.
So you went home. You probably went home when I left North Hills then.
Probably. I think we both went out at the same time, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I think we both were at the same transfer.
That's because I went from North Hills to Beachview.
Because
I was there for like 3 months.
From that transfer meeting, so it must have been that same one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what was, were you in the same Beachview apartment as me then? Because I hear they moved after we.
Yeah, no, I'm sure it's the same one.
I just went back, so was it 1703?
Broadway.
Yeah.
Yep, right straight from the bars.
Were you there the whole 7 months, that apartment? Wow.
Yeah. Yep.
I don't know if I can remember like names of people, but I mean, did you
Crazy.
enjoy your Beachview time? It was winter for me, so it was just cold. It was rough, and there were no cars, so enjoy your life.
Yeah, I got there in October and I left 7 months later, so it was that May. So primarily winter and waiting at those tea stops. You know, like.
Who were you there with?
So I started with Scott Brown, and then Tim Collinson. So he went home medically when I was in the office, I think so.
Wow.
It might have been when you were still northern. Because he came in, I trained him in Beachview. So I was with Scott Brown, he was my trainer.
Okay.
For, I want to say 5 months. Yeah, 5 months.
Long time.
It's a long time to be with your trainer. And then 2 months, he was great, but like, it's just a long time.
Yeah.
And then I trained Tim Collinson, and then.
That's bananas.
Yeah.
You don't go from your trainer to training. It doesn't happen.
Well, yeah, because you're not normally with your trainer for 5 months.
That's what mine was 6. I set mine up.
Okay. So, but.
And then I got handcuffed. They just kept giving me, like, the problem children, but not in a bad way. Just the guys that were like, if you let them, they'll do whatever they want. And so.
I like to think of it that they just forgot about me and not the fact that the mission president wanted me to keep me in his ward for a year and a half. But, because, I mean, I was in, like. So I was there. So I was actually there during transition too. So I was there with President Cooney.
Yeah.
Till that must have been July.
Mm-hmm.
So it must have been more than 7 months. No, I was there 10 months. 10 months. That's where it's off. So it was 10 months. So I was with Scott Brown for 5 months, and then so I was trained for 5 months, and then I trained Tim Collinson for 5 months. So 10 months. So that's why October to August. That's what it was. Because then President Cooney left, and I was still at Beachview. So I'd been in that ward with the Cooneys for 10 months.
So you were training when you met Cameron for the first time?
Yeah.
Or the Camerons?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow.
So then a month after they came in, I went into the office.
Because he saw you, he's like, let's keep you handy.
So he's like, and so I like to think how they just forgot about me, and that's why I was there for so long. But so I was in that, I can't remember the name of the ward. Was it?
It was just Green Tree, wasn't it?
Well, it was a number. I thought it was a number. But
it might have been. I think
doesn't
you're
matter.
right.
I was in that ward for a year and a half. 17
Even
months.
the members at some point
it's
like, hey Brian, like they know you're not
There's a
even
lot
a
of dental
missionary anymore.
students in that ward. I moved them in and moved them out. There was people that I would meet tracting that I knew their name. Like, they're like, you're back again. I'm like, well, it's been a year. Like, you know what I mean? Like, give me some slack. We give you a year. But, yeah, so I was in that apartment for 10 months. I think we only had to call the police on the neighbor like 3 or 4 times. But that's fun. I had some cool apartments. So I had that one. It was ghetto. Yeah. But there was like the abandoned upstairs. Did you ever venture?
No, I guess downstairs was the washer and dryer, which was a mess. Yeah. But I never went upstairs.
Pedophile cave. But then the office, which I mean, it's probably the nice apartment.
Didn't you guys have a few of them? I hear. You guys could just go like back and forth to a few like.
No, there was places we would stay.
I was in the office for a minute, and I remember going to that apartment, and I was like, "Dang, this is nice."
You know, ours was generally nice, but it was just the one. But
wow.
And then I was at Cranberry. That apartment was fun.
I don't know if I ever actually went to where you guys.
Really? To the farm?
I think because you came to North Hills. I think you only came on exchanges once when I was with Lanier. And so I just heard stories about like the barn and all the
barn that Seth took down. Maybe.
I feel like there's so many stories, and part of me just wants to make this a missionary episode because we were close enough in proximity and served around you a bit, and we just, I think our missions overlapped enough that we knew a lot of the same people and stuff like that, but there's more to you, and I kind of want to cover all the bases, but when you said you trained for 5 months in Beachview, I trained for 6 weeks in Beachview, and I just did my best to just work and just get out and just knock doors and just go follow up referrals and all that. Yeah. But I only had to do it for 6 weeks, and then I fell into Sam Harrelson's arms as we're going up to Kane to just be banished to outer darkness. So how did you do it for 5 months? Keep a kid active and motivated and
oh man, it's just I don't know. I remember I was kind of, I don't know what the word is, but I vividly remember when I found out I was training, I hid all the food. Because I think somebody did this to me, but I don't remember exactly. I don't know where I got the idea from, but I hid all the food. So it's you get back from because I was a pretty stickler on rules. I was pretty in the line of the Cooney model, That's where I came in. And so I was pretty rigid, and especially at that point, I'm training, I'm responsible for this guy's eternal salvation, and if I mess it up, this is the main fork in his life. Nothing ever will be more critical than this point, But so I'm man, I'm gonna teach him what sacrifice is. I was huge on I was on this sacrifice thing too. I remember I would get my mail and I would put it in a pile. I wouldn't open it till Wednesdays or whatever,
wow.
Just weird stuff. I was all about delayed gratification, which is maybe why I went into the career I did, where I waited 20 years to get a real job to actually make money. But the idea being I remember one time we had this box of Chips Ahoy cookies or something from my mom, and I put it on the shelf. I'm I'm not gonna open that for 3 weeks. I'm they're Chips Ahoy, they're not gonna go bad anyways. But the idea being when I found out I was training, I was we're gonna teach about sacrifice and obedience and and kind of a lot of these same things that I had gotten from President Cooney. So when I hid all the food, I had my luggage. I put all the food that was in the apartment. All that perpetual food that's always in the apartments. All the cans, all the weird stuff. So I put all that in in this bag, and every day I would bring a little bit out or something, Because it's you get this back from the transfer meeting late, and so it's I'm sorry, preparation day's over, we can't go shopping, we gotta go tracting, and so I was probably perceived as a jerk, and turns out Tim had some health problems that I probably wasn't helping, he would have these hypoglycemic episodes where, but I'm sure it built faith. But anyways, I don't know, that area, there's just you had no other option. There was members, but the members themselves needed a ton of help.
Yes.
But what do you do at 9 o'clock in the morning when everybody is drunk and hungover that lives around you, because everybody just goes to the bars all night, and then it's the members are in the other areas of the ward, not in your actual area.
Brookline and all the fun people over there. Yeah.
So we just tracked. I remember my first month, I feel every day we would walk to this media referral. It literally took us an hour to walk there, and every day we walked there first thing because we had nothing else to do, and I don't know any better. I'm just just got out of the MTC, and I'm so we seem to be doing the same thing every day with the same result. Maybe these people have a job. Maybe that's why they're not home every day at 9 a.m. But it's you just, I don't know. We just tried to have fun with it and tried to.
Well, that's evolved. I feel I really didn't have any contact with the kid that I trained until one time toward the end. Basically, when I was in the office, I wasn't in the office. I went to the office. A bunch of stuff happened. I got put with one of the assistants, Elder Smart, actually, for a few weeks, and then I ended up ending my mission with Sensina in Plum. I was only there 6 weeks, and I had 0 memories of it, but. At one time we did go out, and I happened to be in an area where my trainee was, and by that time some junk had happened, and he heard some rumors, and it had destroyed any confidence he had in his trainer. But
Yeah.
My memories of training him were I don't think that I was a fun guy. I think it was just so like, all right, we got to get you like whipped into shape, and by that time this was my third area, so I'm like, I know what the rest of the mission's like, and this area is dead. Yeah. So good luck. We're gonna go knock a lot of doors, and it's 14 degrees outside, and hooray!
Yeah. Yeah. And everyone in Pennsylvania has their screen door that is permanently locked and can't open it to talk to you. But it's good. It's fun. I mean, I remember tracking for 12 hours. I'm like, well, what are we doing? I didn't know anything else either, you know?
Right.
So, I mean, it's like, at least you feel like you're doing something. I think that taught me lessons about life and, like, efficiency and things. And, you know, I mean, I think it's true of a lot of the mission. Like, you learn probably more about things than you actually teach, perhaps. I mean, there's obviously lots of dimensions to it.
Yeah.
But, you know, plug that. You don't care about it.
I'm enjoying the background. Oh, my Alexa's keeping us up to date on how your house is moving.
Kids are running away.
Well, let's like rewind way back then because
back to my
and there's more mission stuff that I definitely want to talk about because in reference to how this might even connect to the documentary I made, like I'm curious about your perspectives on some things, but I think my perception, or maybe I'd heard it or what have you, is that you're from California. Is that true?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where were you?
I grew up in Southern California, a town called Redlands. It's like...
Redlands?
Redlands, like the color.
Redlands, okay. Yeah.
Which everyone thinks is up north, but that's Redding. But, so it's basically like, if you go from LA to Palm Springs... it's like halfway in between there. So it's kind of like, you follow the smog from LA till it hits like the mountains by Big Bear, if you've ever heard of those. And that's where we lived. Just soaked it all in.
So having never been there, what kind of place is Redlands? Is it?
So it used to be like this really robust like citrus farming area. So like huge citrus groves, like more orange, like the fruit orange production than Florida.
Oh wow!
And so there's these really cool like Victorian houses that were like on the plantation and stuff. And then those are still there, but they pretty much tore the orange groves down, and now it's just suburbia and like everything else. But it still has this like old feel from it. At least when I was there, I haven't lived there in 20-something years. But it was a cool place to grow up. I don't know that I want to live there now, but.
So did you leave from there to your mission and then
come home
from your mission today?
So this is, you might need to draw this out to keep up with me, but, so, I'll just go through my whole plan.
Do it, I'm all in.
So I graduated, I did a semester at BYU, Hawaii. And
shut your mouth.
Yeah, it was fun.
Why? Just to be in school in paradise? Like you couldn't just go to Provo and call it a day? You had to go to Hawaii?
I get accepted to Provo.
Oh, okay.
But we can edit that part out. But, yeah. So I got accepted to Rick's at the time and BYU Hawaii. And so...
so those were your options. That's Hawaii. You're like, I'm not going to Idaho and done.
So I went to BYU Hawaii. I mean, I was from California, you know. I grew up surfing and stuff, and so...
Did you really? Uh-huh. I mean, are you good at it? Or was there ever
Never great, but it was fun. I enjoyed doing it, and we were like 45 minutes to an hour from the coast, so it's not like we would go after school, you know, but like, I have a friend that we would go with all the time, and we would go down and...
For any surfers that might be listening, do you have like favorite beaches or anything? Did you guys go to the Boo and do it like hardcore? Or?
So we were primarily at like South Orange County, so like Dana Point and San Clemente.
Oh wow!
So at that time I was pretty much longboarding. So we're talking like the 9-foot surfboards. You know, you kind of walk up and down, do the nose riding, like that type of stuff. Like if you've ever seen that.
Yes.
So
wow.
So that was kind of like the beaches that we liked for that.
Okay.
Stuff, but,
wow.
So I went to Hawaii, and it was great. It was fun. It was my worst semester academically, but it was awesome. Surfed most days. It was good. We used to hitchhike everywhere. That was fun. That was the good times. Because there was BYU Hawaii is on the north shore, kind of like what they call the windward side. It's like not the North Shore, but it's around the corner.
Yeah.
And so, but once you leave Honolulu and the kind of developed areas, and this is all referenced from 20 years ago, it may be different now. But, so there's one highway that goes all the way around, and that's right where the school is. And so we would just walk down from the school, and you would stand there and just hitchhike. People would pull over, pick you up in various degrees. Like usually it's a pickup truck, and you jump in the back with your surfboard and just ride in the back, and then they let you out. And it's just a different world. Like everyone was so cool and laid back, and yeah, a lot of surfing and spearfishing, and
I mean, back then was a gallon of milk like $10 or whatever. Like
I like lived on the you had to live on the campus.
Yeah,
and so like I don't know, we didn't pay for anything, but because at BYU Hawaii, at least at the time, if you were a freshman, you had to live on campus, which made it cool because everybody was there. It wasn't just like the people who couldn't find somewhere cool to live. Like so, it was fun, and everybody was away from home, so everybody was like, you know, willing to be friends, and it was like it's just a cool time. Then I actually transferred to Rick's because
you went from Hawaii to Idaho.
Yeah. I was a big skier at the time too. So right where I live, it's like you're an hour from the beach and you're an hour from the mountains. Yeah. And so like I kind of grew up doing both things, and it was kind of skiing was always a passion, and I had friends that went up to Idaho. So it was fun, but like BYU Hawaii at the time was pretty limited on what you could do academically. So like for what I was limited at the time, there wasn't a lot of great options for deep like academic careers there.
Yeah.
So I went up there and then did a semester there, and then I left on my mission. So I did a semester at each, went on my mission, came back, and resumed in Idaho. At that time, I had switched over to BYU Idaho. Mm-hmm. So I went there, I'd switched around. I was doing business. I came back. I decided I wanted to do something different. So I was actually doing paramedics. I was getting my paramedic degree. Mm-hmm. And then, meanwhile, like I'm just eating up all these credits, like not actually getting anywhere. Because like paramedics was like an associate's degree. So I was like doing it along the way to like getting a real degree. But like I used up all my credits. So like they called me into like administration. They're like, dude, you gotta like move on. They're like, there's people who want to come here and you're taking up their spot. So you have to have 120 credits to graduate.
Yeah.
So I had 160, and they're like, seriously, like we got to find something to do with you. So, because I was there 4 years, but like I did year round. Like they had like a year round program. I had nothing else to do, so I just stayed and did through the year round and worked while I was up there. And so they like took my credits and made a degree. It's called University Studies, which if I hadn't gotten into medical school, I would have been toast because university studies, like, okay.
It's liberal arts, yeah.
They basically,
nothing, yeah.
They took what credits I had, and they're like, okay, there's a degree. So I graduated in the winter of 2005, so like December. My wife and I got married like November of 2005, so just before I graduated. And the time I was applying to dental school, I was going to go to dental school. So I was applying to dental school, and for all these professional programs, it's like a year process. Uh-huh. You apply in the summer, like July 1st usually, or June 1st, whatever it was, and then you interview during the kind of early winter, late fall, and then you get accepted for the next year. Wow. So it's a long process. And so I had all the prerequisites I needed to apply, and I was just waiting to finish my degree. So, and my wife had already graduated. She graduated a semester ahead of me, so we're like, well, what do we do? So we moved to this little ski resort town that was like an hour and a half from Rexburg, maybe an hour from Rexburg. Uh-huh. And I was doing online for my last few credits.
Okay.
So we worked at the ski resort and making like minimum wage, like, and then
so fun though.
Like, it's awesome. Ski resorts are like the most qualified employed people. Yeah. Wow. Like we're all there, like we all have degrees, we all have like legitimate backgrounds, and we're all like making minimum wage and loving it, you know. Skied 100 days a year because you just go every day. Like I worked as a ski tech, so I would set up skis in the morning, go ski during the day, and then come back when people come back.
How injured were you all the time? Like doesn't matter how good you are at it. Like you could.
Well, funny you should mention, because the moral of the story is it that year? I don't remember now. So I ended up working there 2 years. Okay. So maybe I wasn't applying that year yet. I don't know. Anyways, so my second year of working there, I was on ski break, and we were with some friends. So I had friends that all lived there and worked there from college. So a few of us did the same thing after they got the idea from Bobby and I. And so we were out skiing together, and they all snowboarded. And they were one of the guys was in front of me, and he was going. We'd come down out of this chute, we'd come down off these cliffs, and then you dump down, and then there's like a cat track, which is like the flat connector road, like back to the base. Okay. So it's usually pretty slow because you're kind of it's not a very steep grade. But we had just come down out of the chute, so we were going quite fast, and we hit this cat track, and it forks. And normally you stay on the high run because the low one gets even flatter and takes forever to get back, and it's no fun because it's just a transition way. But he went left down to the other one, like. Okay, and I was right behind him. There was like 6 of us. So I was second in line, and he went down. I'm like, okay, I guess we're going this way. So I follow him. I'm on his right. And all of a sudden, we come over this little roll, and now he's coming up. And so what he was doing was he was coming down, and he was turning to come back up and jump the little roll back onto the upper trail. I didn't know this. And he had these headphones on, so he didn't know what I was doing either. So all of a sudden now, I'm like from me to you as I was from him, and we're both going like 30 something miles an hour. So he hits me, sends me into the neighboring tree, and so I hit my right side, and I just go straight into the snow. And so this was like a tree kind of off the main trail, so it was pretty soft snow, so I'm buried in this snow. My wife is the one behind me, so she's like digging me out of the snow, trying to get because I'm passed out. I'm completely unconscious. And so I'm not. So my face is down in the snow bank, which is not a great recipe for oxygenation and stuff. So she gets me rolled over, and I wake up after a little bit. And anyways, moral stories. I have a collapsed lung, a bunch of broken ribs, some broken parts of my vertebrae in the back, and like
your vertebrae, like spine.
Yeah. So like not the so you have. So if like this is your vertebrae, you've got like the disc part here, and you've got these little wings that come off, and that's where the ribs connect to as they come around the chest wall. So this kind of like sits like this back here. Yeah. So it's just a side guy. It's not like the actual like backbone or anything like that. So anyways, next thing I know, like I'm getting life flighted out of here. You know, I'm still supposed to be working, right? Like I'm on my ski break, you know. Yeah. Someone's got to close up the shop. But anyways, the long story short, like. I had some pretty significant injuries there. I was in the hospital for a little while, and but
just one time in like 2 years, like.
So that month, 5 people hit trees. It was a bad month. 4 of them died. So you do the math. I'm the one that lived, you know. But so it was interesting. It's a resort. It's an awesome resort, and I still ski there, just not with him. But the ski patrol is very good at avalanche control. There's a ton of snow and things like this. Not so much the medical side of things. Yeah. Like, I mean, I was on the side of the mountain with a collapsed lung, like can't breathe. So it's called a tension pneumothorax, where like the lung is covered in a layer, and then there's a space, and then a layer on the outside of the chest wall. And there's not normally something in that space, but it's just kind of meant as a potential space where things move, you know, when you're breathing and things. But when you pop the lung, because you shove a rib through it, it sends air into that space, so that space fills up and compresses the lung. So now, like, this lung is full, and this one's sitting here like this because air is from within inside collapsing out, like holding it down. So you can't breathe. And so you have to shove a needle in to let that air in the wrong space out. These guys had no idea what they were doing. I was asking them for a needle so I could just do it because I knew what it was. And so luckily, when they got me to the base, which was like an hour later, the air flight crew knew what they were doing, and so they decompressed and then flew me to the hospital. So it was good fun. So anyways, while that whole thing kind of created this new change in direction.
That was when dental school was gone for you, and you're like,
what? I don't.
Was there a minute during the dental school phase where you were thinking about the fact that, like,
I was scared.
Pittsburgh is full of dental, at least in the Mormon community, like a bunch of people go there.
Especially,
did you think about that?
Yeah, and I think that's part of like while I was on my mission, I like meeting all those people, mainly doing manual labor for them and moving them in. But it kind of like started to get me into that like professional and dentistry I liked because it was kind of creative and a little bit more artistic and like hands-on type of stuff. And So that part kind of interesting.
When you say artistic, I imagine that like health dentistry and cosmetic dentistry are two completely different fields. Is that wrong?
Totally, yeah.
Oh, okay.
So like, but you're doing like the restorative stuff where you're kind of
okay.
like doing these things and you're kind of like, you're
braces and
and the like even just like crowns and stuff like that. You're still like using tools to kind of like shape things and create.
Oh, I get what you mean. Okay.
So, so I kind of like that aspect of it, and I had been doing business. So I was like, oh, it's kind of like business, but also healthcare and all these other things. But then I like realized doing that, I'm like, I want to have life skills. Like I want to have my career be something that is who I am. Like I don't want to have this job that I can't use anywhere else. You know what I mean?
And maybe timeline-wise, I'm mishearing things, but in that you knew how to decompress your own lung, that was before you went to medical school that you knew that.
Correct, because that was from the paramedic training that I did.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And
you're 160 degree.
Yeah. And I loved the paramedic side of things, but I just knew that it would be difficult to sustain a lifestyle with that. And so that's when I started to look out to more legitimate.
Because it's really just like EMT, like to be a paramedic, that's it.
And you can get some good jobs. And it's not to degrade anybody out there who does this because it's an awesome career, but like you can do great, like people do long, full life careers doing, especially like fire based, like you're working for City of Phoenix, paramedic, like you can make a good income, but it's difficult work, you're away from your family a ton, a lot of these guys will do like 24 on, which probably much different than what I do now. But anyway, but at that time, that's kind of where my thinking was going. And honestly, if I'm honest, that's using honest a lot. But if I'm honest with myself, I was afraid of medicine. I felt safer. I felt this weighted blanket effect of dentistry. Like I felt like
because of its focus, where you're just like, it's a mouth. How much can really go wrong in a mouth?
No one's gonna die, probably. Probably. People aren't going to come to me in extreme distress. Yes, they may be in dental pain, and I give them an injection that's better. Right. And I don't mean to diminish dentistry at all, but I was looking at it as I wanted some life skills, and I was afraid of it.
Yeah.
But I wanted it, so I'm like, I know how to do it.
Afraid of the failure attached to it?
No, afraid of the actual execution of medicine, like being the one responsible, being the one that's like, I'm dying, fix me. And I'm like, I don't know how to fix you. Like that fear.
Are you that good at the rest of your life that like having an area where the execution of something, like you might not get it right, is a huge fear? I feel like I am kind of afraid of that in all areas of my life. Like I'm hyper conscious and aware of...
Yeah. But like I do triathlon. And if I fail at a triathlon, if I come in dead last, no one died. But if like someone comes into my ER in some situation and either I don't figure out what's going on or I do something wrong and they die, like it's kind of you like you kind of did.
So your fear isn't a personal consequence.
Yeah.
It's, you don't want to be responsible for the world. You don't want to be responsible.
Get in BYU. I'm okay with failing. I'm okay with that.
Okay.
I remember now. I failed. I didn't get into dentistry the first year. That's what it was. I was reapplying. See, I failed at that too, and I'm okay with that. Like I could care less. And if anything, I'm a total believer that failure is a step. You know what I mean? Like you learn from failing. Like I totally understand that. And
it really tends to take the wind out of my sails. Like I've had to. Really,
it hurts. Yeah, it hurts. It hurts for sure. But that wasn't the fear I had. The fear was like the responsibility of somebody's life. Sure. That you don't know. Yeah. That you have a limited interaction with. Like, yeah, I fear failing at a parent, but it's different.
And it's almost like maybe because when the person's dead, they are consciously gone, so there's no real I'm sorry or anything you can have. It's everybody connected to them that now you gotta be a part of their feelings and a part of their whatever. Like
Yeah. Well, and it's a little bit of a tangent, but it's like, people are like, how do you deal with death? Like, I mean, because I pronounce people dead fairly often. And it's like, how do you deal with that? Because especially in emergency medicine, which is what I do now, it's like it's like a complicated game of waiting tables where you're like a waiter or waitress that is trying to manage this person's at this part of their meal, this person's getting ready to order, this person wants their check, this person's mad because their steak's cooked wrong. And it's the exact same thing, but it's that this person's waiting for their CAT scan, this person's waiting to be seen, this person doesn't like the fact that whatever, and this person has, is waiting for their morphine to kick in, or they want more of it, or whatever. And so it's like this complicated table, but where I'm going with this is that you have to then drop all of that, go see this person who's coming in cardiac arrest, CPR's in progress. You have to then try to resuscitate that person, and then walk out and tell the mom of the 3-year-old with the earache that they're okay, it's a virus, they need to go home. And like you have to be able to like shut that into its own box. Yeah. And you have to compartmentalize it to some degree. And so it's like people are like, well, how do you deal with that so much? And it's like I think it's partly just the fact that like you have to like I have a skewed perspective of death, I think. Also plays into it.
Skewed how?
Well, so my dad had cancer when I was young, passed away from cancer when I was 13 years old. And so, like, from the time I was 8, like, I was going to these, like, chemotherapy appointments with and stuff. So, it was like, I was exposed to death pretty early. Wow. And then, just kind of, and then this career path, like, all these other things along the way, like, I feel a little differently about death, and partly just because of this, like, and I don't mean to, like, callous it at all, but it's like when somebody comes in dead, CPR's in progress, that person's dead. Like you're doing everything you can to save them. I don't mean to diminish that, I'm not trying, but it's like it's something different when that person was never alive in your relationship. Yeah. And so now, but like you're saying, like now you've got this family. Yes. That like this is their family member. And so it's like you have to go from like we've done everything we can, we've done everything in our toolbox, it didn't work. I'm sorry, like do this 5 times a week. He's just number 6, like, and I'm not trying to project that to them, but because for them, you have to be like, yeah, I'm so sorry. This is
sort of in your own level of grief. You're like, no, I'm here, and this is sad for me. Yeah, even though I'm gonna.
But at the same time, again in 20 minutes. At the same time, I'm the only doctor in here, and I know that more people are checking in, and everybody's getting sicker, and there may be someone else who's about to die if I don't go do something. And so it's like, and it's hard because it's like this balance, but it's winning tables. I don't remember where we started from this, but
so how did like?
Oh, that's my fear though. Is like we're talking about fear and about how like that stuff was super intimidating to me. Yeah. So I came up with this plan. I want life skills that I can use in real life, but I don't want to be like uber responsible. I just kind of want to like be able to do what I want. Yeah. And fit it the way I want. So I'm like, I'm going to be a PA. I'm going to be a physician's assistant. I'd already done all the prereqs, and so I was like, okay, cool, PA. I'm going to do PA school. I don't know if you know much about PA school, but it's an awesome program where you can still do pretty much everything, but you're under the supervision of somebody else, and so you're under a physician. So
you do brain surgery only because somebody's standing right there.
Well, yeah, and it's like you're usually assisting.
Okay.
Like, in the more complex stuff, you're more of an assistant.
Like in the movies when they're like, scalpel, the person handing them the scalpel is the PA?
Well, it's more so, that's the surgical tech, but there's like, so like, if you're the neurosurgeon, you're doing something, and then I'm doing something with tools, but like, you're the one running the ship, and I'm like your co-pilot, kind of thing.
Oh, so in the movie, when he says scalpel, somebody runs and gets the scalpel. There's another dude on the other side of the body who's got his hands on tools. They're in there holding him. That's the PA. Yeah. You're right there in the window. Yeah. Okay.
And in the ER, we do it all the time. Like, we're all kind of seeing the same patient. Typically, if they're a critical patient, then the doc will be seeing them. But, so I kind of like that idea where I wasn't going to be on my own, being the one who everybody's turning to. Mm-hmm. And so I liked that appeal. It kind of fit all my needs. So I was applying to PA school. And again, this takes a year. It's like... You start and you go again, and then so anyways, I was starting the cycle, but there was this program that was new, and so they still had some spots for that class. So like the one that was going to start in a couple of weeks, and they're like, "Hey, we'll take you if you want to start this year." I'm like, "Because you're done, everything's ready." Like at this point, I'm like literally doing photography and helping families with their business, working for other people. Because I'm done with school. I've had my degree for 2 years now, and so I'm like, "Okay, cool, yeah, let's do it." And then I was taking an extra class at Idaho State because it was just nearby, and I wanted to redo one of my classes. And my professor was like, "What are you doing? Don't go to PA school." Like, because she knew me pretty well. She's like, you need to go to medical school. I'm like, I don't want to go to medical school. I'm afraid of medical school. Why would I go to medical school? I'm afraid. And she's like, no, you need to go to medical school. I'm like, all right, fine. So I'm like, I pulled out of that program, and I'm like, okay, I'll do the rest of my cycle applying this year, because I can't apply to med school next year anyways. And like 2 days later, I pulled out all of them. I'm like, all right, I'm doing medical school. I did medical school.
Which was how many years?
4. So we came here to Phoenix for 4 years. We actually went to a little stint in Reno in the in between, because when I was applying to medical school, I was in Idaho, because that's where my wife is from. So we were living there, and there's no state medical school there, so there's no real advantage to apply as an Idaho resident. It doesn't do you any good. So we moved to Reno, so that if I had to apply the next year, I could apply as a resident of Nevada and have a better chance. But I got in, came here to Arizona, did 4 years here, then we moved to Rhode Island, did 4 years of residency in Rhode Island, and in emergency medicine.
Yeah.
And then we moved to Missouri for 2 years. So,
Wow.
Cape Girardeau, Missouri. It's a small town between St. Louis and Memphis,
Okay.
just along the Mississippi River. My sister had ended up there like 15 years earlier, and my mom, who was a widow at this point, would kind of move around because all 5 of the kids in my family, we all lived in different places. So she would, instead of trying to go visit every family, she would actually just move, because she was retired at this time. So she would go move, live by one of the families, and then move on a year or 2 later. So she was in Missouri near my sister, and actually started to get sick, and was ultimately diagnosed with ALS, which is a Lou Gehrig's disease. It's like a progressive nerve degeneration disease.
Yeah.
So at the time I was in the end of my residency, was right when she was really starting to get a little bit higher care needs. She had been actually living by herself, but was getting to the point that she needed more. So we moved to Missouri and took a job there so that we could move her in with us. So we bought a house that we converted to accommodate her lifts and tracks and system and all these other things. And so we moved in with her, which was awesome, because we were going to come here straight from Rhode Island. And I thought, I'll just go back there a lot and visit. But ended up taking the job there and going there, which was such a in hindsight, a perfect decision, because 4 months after we moved there, she decompensated and passed away. And so, like, we would have still been getting settled in here and probably would have gone back once or twice. And so it was awesome. My kids got to live with her and see her every morning and see her all day and do stuff. So it was cool. But
Well, this might be a weird left turn, but something I'm interested in from a distance, but also in the sense that my mom's in her 70s, my dad's in his late 60s, and I hear people talk about, like, the Dead Parents Club and just sort of how your life view changes when your parents are gone. In your case, you know, your dad's gone when you're 13.
Yeah.
And then your mom passes, just a few years ago, I guess?
Yeah, 3 years ago. Well, 2.5 years.
Was there a substantial difference between when she was gone and now you don't have a parent at all? Or was it just sort of an extension of what you'd already gone through at 13? Or
So, I think the biggest change, like, it honestly was, not to minimize the impact of my mom's death, but, like, by the time my mom was even diagnosed, like, I had already, like, kind of had this change of paradigm towards death. And I think ultimately that came from when my dad died. And partly because I watched for 5 years these battles of some success against cancer and then regression and return of cancer and metastasis of cancer to a new spot, a new problem. I think that's ultimately what shaped me. Because that's kind of like a pivotal time in your life anyways. Like 8 to 13. Like, you're figuring out a lot of stuff in life. And basically what I was figuring out was, like, how people die. And, like, other stuff too. But, like, to then grow up the next, 20-something years before my mom passed away. Like, basically I grew up with my mom. Like, my mom never remarried or anything. And so I basically kind of grew up alone. Because I was the youngest kid. So I grew up with my sisters. I had 3 sisters and then an older brother. But when my dad died, my brother was already at college. So I think that a lot of that kind of just shaped the overall picture of who I became. And I think I became a very independent, not necessarily introverted, but some people may think that. Just because I became so reliant on myself. Like, not that my mom wasn't there and a big part of my life, but
Is that some level of a trust issue, you think? Like, because life has now become so fragile, you just don't bother with relationships? Because you're just like, hey, I mean, anybody could just be
I think I was okay
tomorrow.
with, and maybe that's not the right word, but I think, because like I didn't have a problem with relationships, but I think I just had I was cool being my own thing too. Like, doing my own path, like my own, figuring things out on my own, like, you know, because I didn't have like my dad to go sit and say, hey, let's figure out my career path.
Right.
You know, and maybe that would have maybe not made so many circles of, maybe we would have had to get 160 undergraduate credits, and it would have had to have taken the DAT, the LSAT, and the MCAT. You know, maybe I would have had to, you know, I don't know how many things I applied to between medical school, dental school, and PA school. I applied to 100 programs. You know, but like, and so those things may have been streamlined, but that's like who I became, was like, I just figured things out on my own. And so, I think, I don't remember what the original question was.
Just about the Dead Parents Club and about how that...
Oh, yeah.
I'm from my own perspective...
Yeah. I
guess I've just got enough issues with my own parents that there's part of me that thinks that I will feel freedom with living in a world where I don't have to carry around a concern that I might come home from work, and because I live with my sister and her husband and their two small children, that my parents might just be there visiting the grandkids, and now they're like, oh, and how are you? Because I don't have any kids, because I'm not married. I occupy this strange space that, especially in Mormon culture, because they're very active, I think that they just don't know how to interact with me anymore, because I'm not a baby, and I don't need them to like take care of me. Yeah. But in some ways, I'm not something that I think they would consider to be a full-grown man who's like, okay, I'm kind of in this weird space where like, how do I relate to this guy?
Because they probably reference where you are in your life to where they were at a different point, a different situation in their life, and then they expect you to just be on that path back here to where they are. And you've got your own path, you've got your own plans, you've got your own, you know, trajectory. And I think that's what's the whole plan, is that like you get way more out of your life by doing it your way and doing it your process, even if it's not in hindsight efficient. Like, if we were to plot out what happened, like, people would be like, dude, you're an idiot. Why didn't you just do this and then that? Like, clearly. But, like, you become who you are because of that. And I think in some ways I had it easier because I didn't have to worry about that. Because in some ways I was this orphan kid.
It's almost like a Band-Aid got pulled off of you at 13 that most people don't experience until they're in their 40s or whatever, and so you already knew the pain structure or the...
Yeah. Or maybe the wound was never there to be bandaged because I never developed that part. Like, I never knew my dad as a normal dad.
Oh, wow.
Older than 8, because he, out of fairness, I mean, he was a great man, and I learned more about him probably from other people after I got old enough to understand it. And he was an awesome man, but I knew him as my dad when I was young, which is different than your dad when you're 30, probably.
Yeah.
And then I knew him as someone who was battling cancer. And I learned tons from those things, but I never had that relationship that then became weird or awkward or fragmented, because it was never there. And I had a relationship that was pretty unique with my mom, because for a lot of my growing up, it was me and my mom, and my sisters were there and a big part of the life too, but it was like my mom was my parenting structure. And it's different growing up with a mom than it is with a mom and a dad. And so it was skewed, but we had a great relationship in that regard. And so by the time she got sick, I knew very well what was going on from a physiology standpoint and a medical standpoint of what was going on. And so our relationship really grew and developed, and in a lot of ways different than it did with my other siblings, because I was my mom's resource for what's going on with me. And that allowed us to have a lot of relationships. a lot of strengthening of our relationship. And so in some ways I think it was easier because for her, death was like a known thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing about ALS. It's like, you know you're going to die. You know how you're going to die. You just don't know when. Mm-hmm. And so we had a lot of great kind of things progressing towards that. Mm-hmm. And I look at people now who like looking at your situation and then also looking like as these patients come in that are old, demented, can't care for themselves, and the family is just torn apart.
Yeah.
Because they're like, what do we do with them? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, well, here's what I would recommend from my personal standpoint, but from my personal standpoint, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't have that problem.
Right.
Like, you know, and it's like, it's weird because I would love to have parents, especially now that I'm a parent, like I would love to be able to say like, how do you do this parenting thing, you know? But like, so it's, I mean, it's a double-edged sword, you know, wow. But to answer your question, like, I think that, you know, you deal with this, everybody's got their own thing, and I think it's like, in some ways it was easier for me because we knew my dad was going to die, and we knew my mom was going to die, and so we were able to live our life with that plan. Mm-hmm. But like you don't know if your parents are going to be alive 6 months or 20 more years. Right. I mean, it's like, and so it's easy to say, we'll deal with those problems when they come, and then I look at it as I see people who have that ripped away from them. Mm-hmm. And they're like completely shocked because of either a traumatic injury or an abrupt change in medical condition, you know, and it's like their world is just rocked. Yeah. And I mean, yeah, I vividly remember, you know, when both of my parents actually died, but like at the same time, like it wasn't ever like, whoa, this came out of nowhere. And so we were able to prepare. And so it's like the thing that I've gotten from that and that I try to convey to my patients is like, you've got to live your life as if it is going to be soon. Like repair whatever you have to repair, discuss what you have to discuss, like know what you need to know before you can't find out. Yeah. I don't think that answers your question or helps you. No. But the idea being really it's like, does, it's like, it's just, life is so fragile, you know? Yeah. It's like, it's...
So how did the experience of the 160 credits and all of... How did that impact medical school in the sense that it feels like you went into medical school kind of over-prepared for the experience to where everybody else is freaking out and like drinking up this information. You're like, oh yeah, I've had that for a while.
Well, I'm not a great student. I really am not. Like academically, like I'm totally different. And like, so the average, you know, cut it out of the mold medical student is someone, they went to 4 years of undergrad, you know, started in high school. Like they're the annoying kids, right? That are like acing every test. You know, you get scored on a 4.0 GPA and these kids have like 4.3 somehow. You know, like these are those kids, right? They go to medical school. So 4 years of undergrad, 4 years of medical school. I mean, these people are what, 22, 26 years old when they hit medical school, right? Like they've done nothing but academics and they're good at it. Hear me, like, shoot, I did 6 years of undergrad. Like if you actually like do the math, I took 2 years off for my mission. I took 2 years off to ski and figure out what I wanted to do. I'm starting medical school at, how old was I? 28? Oh, wow. No. Yeah, 28. 1981 to 2009. It's 29, right? 28. Okay, 28. Yeah, it's 28. So I'm starting, like, at least 4 years behind most of these people, like, you know, a lot of the time. Or at least more than the average. And even the other, like, Mormon kids that went on missions, like, I'm still older than them. Right. And there were some people that were, like, total career change. There was, like, a lady that was in her late 50s and some other thing. You know, that's crazy. But it's, like, I was almost, like, probably less of a quality student because, like, I haven't been, like, in the you know, the hamster wheel just plowing it out. Like, I kind of actually went and lived life, which I totally would not take back. Like, I worked in several aspects of healthcare while I was doing these other things. And so I was the guy that pushed people from the hospital room to get their tests done. I was the secretary that answered the phone, that transcribed the orders. So it's like, and most people I work with, like physician-wise, they haven't done those things. Mm-hmm. And that's fine. They don't need to. But like, it's given me a perspective that I personally value because I know what that other person is doing. And I try not to yell at them when they don't do what I want them to do because I know what else they have to be doing and things.
Mm-hmm.
So when I hit medical school, I think I was a little bit more like real than a lot of these guys. Like I wasn't like, this wasn't my lifetime goal. I never, as a kid, was like, I want to be a doctor.
Mm-hmm.
Like that was never really my goal. So it was like, I was just kind of living life, Like I'm just like, who knows? This may change again. I don't know. Like everything else has. So like, I mean, I tried to have fun with it and be real and like got through it. I mean, I missed questions on tests, but don't tell my patients that. But I think I was just more of a real student, and I was cool with not getting 100% on every test, but like trying to live balance.
Wow.
And just have some equal priorities.
Mm-hmm.
So,
all right. Intensely weird question. I have a data entry job right now. That's the majority. That's really all what I do for my job, but I enjoy it, and it's been making me think in the sense that I spent my post-high school career, which to this point's basically been 20 years, I've had actually 20 different jobs, literally, and just burning out of, call center after call center to just all sorts of stuff, and finally feel pretty fortunate to have landed in this space. But then I've been thinking, okay, so since this is a niche that you dig, just kind of putting on headphones and zoning out and doing this kind of work, in what other ways can one make money doing things like this? And I went through Pathway, and then I went, at the time, and I don't know, maybe I know they've been doing relationship stuff with ASU and stuff, so they're trying to get their programs more up there. But at the time that I graduated a couple years ago and was looking at what they had, the only thing that was there that was even remotely interesting was web design. So I'm like, let's give this a shot. Yeah. And I got 3/4 of the way through a class, and I just couldn't figure out what they were talking about anymore. I literally spent a few weeks copying, because in the online environment, you could do this, copying other students' work, submitting it as my own work, just to try to get to the next week to see if it's going to make any more sense. Yeah. And it just wasn't. It was just slipping away from me. Yeah, so hard. And so I was like, okay, well, that's clearly not going to work for me. But I've had this weird side eye on medical billing for a long time, because I hear that it's super lucrative in the sense that you just, as much as you can do is the money you're going to make. And I imagine, since the training programs or whatever, only a year or whatever to do coding, it can't be all that complex. I mean, people can learn to do it. I mean, is that I don't know, even politically speaking, is this a good time in the history of where healthcare is to get into medical billing?
Oh, our healthcare system is so, yes is the answer. Our healthcare system is so broken and fragmented, which is a whole discussion of itself. But the idea being, it's only going to get more this way. As far as the coding requirements.
Oh, wow.
So long gone is the day where my documentation, as painful as it is to do, it is enough. I write my note, and then I get my note back. It's like you're a third grader that's getting your essay back with all this marking on it that says, oh, you need to do this, this is wrong. Yeah. And I get, not all my charts, but the idea being they go to the coders and they'll say, you've missed this, we need 2 more symptoms from this body system, and you need this and that, so that we can bill for what you've done. And so it's only going to get that way because of who's paying.
Okay.
And with managed care, with Medicare, with Medicaid, with the private insurances that then follow those, it's only becoming more, I don't know what the word is, but black and white. It's not just the doctor said they did this, we're going to pay them for that. It's you have to do it, and it's kind of if you're a coder, you could look at it, it's this game, there's, it's Tom Run, where you're trying to run and pick these coins up.
Yeah.
And it's, that's what you're trying to do. The money's there, but you have to grab it. Yeah. You have to be able to grab it, because the other side of the game is that they're trying to find ways that they don't have to pay you. And so that's why this is such a critical thing, because for people like us and my group, none of us are trained on this. We may have a lecture in medical school on billing. Yeah. We may have a speaker that comes during residency and talks about it. And then the other 99% of stuff is how to not kill people. And so we don't know the business side of it.
Right.
And so we're walking away from money without people like that situation because they're going back and reclaiming what we earned, but didn't justify with the other stuff. That makes sense?
Very much.
So I think it's only going to be more the requirement.
Wow.
And that's true of everywhere. It's not just emergency medicine. It's like, it's become even just the routine primary practice. Like, it's more business than it is the medicine sometimes. And if you have the ability to provide that service that I don't know how to provide, and it's going to be way too much work for me to try to step out of my situation and do that too, or do that instead to make it worthwhile, where it's much easier for me to pay a service to do it.
Sure. Wow. Well, off show, I'll probably see if I can take more information out of you about that, about avenues that I can go and just, I don't know anything about it other than the fact that depending on how hard you are willing to work and how focused you are, there's so much money out there that's just not getting collected.
It's a stack that needs to be processed.
Yes.
Somebody's got to do it.
Yes.
And they have computer algorithms that do it, but it's like, doctors are such a pain. Because, like, in some ways you, like you can't force me to do some things because I can just push back. Which I try not to do, but some people are very good at it. And it's like, it's so easy to use these checkbox note templates. Yeah. Because as you check those boxes, it calculates a score in the background. But all I have to do is say, I don't want to use those checkboxes. And they say, okay, fine. Now that creates a job for somebody to have to actually read it. Yeah. And instead of it automatically tallying it because of what I clicked, they've got to read my note and say, okay, there's 1, there's 2, there's 3. So,
wow. I'm like geeked because it sounds like something I would both kind of enjoy. Like it would just be fun for my analytical brain and also just a great... I can't tell if I want to be rich or if I want to be famous. Because sometimes I do want to be like praised for the art that I put in the world. Yeah. And other times I just don't want to I don't want to think about spending money. Yeah. I want the money to be so there that I can just go, if I just want to go have an $80 sushi lunch just for me, that's what's happening today. Or if I just want to,
or if you want to walk into the sushi place and have them give it to you because of who you are. It's such a dilemma.
I could live that life too. Even though on some level, I'd probably start giving to charity more if that was my world, because it's just like, since no one's making me pay for anything, I'm not just going to keep my money. Like, fine, and this money does other things. And maybe that's why rich people donate to charity so much. But hard right, because I don't know what we've been talking about. This has been so much fun. This is not that bad. I don't know if, and I doubt, and I'm not putting pressure on you, if you've watched the documentary that I made about going back to Pittsburgh, but a good portion of that story is about me and Seth Losser's companionship and things that happened. And
Seth, if you ever see this, I love you, man. You're awesome.
He's gonna see it, and that's gonna make him cry. I know, well, that's so good.
I'll never forget Cranberry.
I mean, even in the documentary, like him and Sarity were telling funny stories about the pranking and all that's hysterical, but...
It's stupid raccoon. Possum.
And the squid or whatever.
I digress,
missions are fun. I feel like I might have been at a slight disadvantage going into the area that I served in with him, because he'd been there with another companion who had already got the ball rolling on some habits and had just kind of created this atmosphere that is then what I walked into. But I feel also like Seth Losser is Seth Losser, and he's the kind of guy who's just going to do it his own way, regardless of the rules or guidelines that surround it. And so I have to imagine that any of his companions that were obedient or even remotely strict, like, bumped up against that, and it became sort of a source of friction. But I also don't see you as the kind of guy that creates or deals in friction with people. So what was your Seth experience like?
It was a lot of fun. I think the thing that got me about Seth was he doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out exactly who Seth is going to be when you meet him. Like, he doesn't hide his cards.
Right.
Except
that he really does.
he hides his emotions, but he doesn't hide. Well, and other things too. But like when you meet him, you know that you're not going to mold him into who you know. Like you know what I mean. Like Elder Prieto, Danny Prieto. Like that guy was like putty. I could mold him into whatever I wanted to mold him into because he was just so passionate about being there and me being there with him that like if I would have told him this is how we do it, he would have done it. You know, and not in a bad. I mean, like anything that was not malicious, he would have obviously stood up for himself. Yeah. And then there's Seth Loster, who was like, no, we're not going to do it that way. And like you can pick that up right away. Yeah. But like that became my quest with Seth because I knew he was there, he was invested, he was committed, and like he talked about, like he came on his own, like he wasn't forced to come, and he was committed to being there and doing it, and I think, and I don't know much about his history before me, but I as we were there and as we had these episodes of interaction in a opposing way. Because I don't think we ever had friction. I think we just had like we were both strong personalities. Yeah. But like I'm also like I'll fall over and die pretty easy. Like a cheap suit for sure. Yeah, exactly. So like I'm not like, especially with someone like Seth, like I'm not gonna be the guy who fights just to maintain my point. Yeah. Especially with someone as committed to his ideals as Seth is. And so like, but as we slowly did things, I think that became my quest, was to see the passion and the transition in him. Yeah. Not that I changed him, but that like you could tell that he was like willing to be like, okay, yeah, we can do this. Like I wouldn't have done this before, but like, oh, sure, yeah, let's do it. Like this doesn't hurt. Let's do it. You know, and I think that was what was fun, was that we were actually able to like be real with each other. Yeah. And like at this point in my mission, like I'd really become a little bit less rigid than I was with Tim Collinson and hiding the food. And so I never tried to hide food from Seth. Mostly because I was afraid of him. But the idea being like I was more like willing to be like, if it doesn't go my way today, like I'm okay with that. We'll work with what we've got. But that was what was cool, is that like we got places and we became pretty effective together and pretty cohesive together, and we had a lot of fun together. Like we have a lot of the same personality in some ways, and like completely opposite personalities in other ways, and that was just kind of a fun dynamic. And I imagine it was fun for people to watch too, because we were just so like yin and yang in some ways, and so similar in other ways.
And I mean, and I don't know. I was a district leader for a while, for like a year of my mission, and
wasn't it when you were in North Hills? I think it was. I mean, you were district leader when I was zone leader.
That's not. Is that possible?
Either way,
my memory is when I got transferred into Beachview.
Your story.
I got transferred into Beachview. Was made senior companion. Because I think I was only co-senior in North Hills with Lanier, and then I was made senior companion and district leader at the same time, which was just like a crap your pants moment. And then on top of that, my first time getting calls from people, it was kind of the worst experience, because it's me and Coombs, and I'm the district leader and the senior companion. The other elders in the district was Treft and Golightly, and Treft was the zone leader. Okay. So I'm the district leader of the zone leader, which feels like it's always no reason to be alive. And then the other companionship in the district was a set of sisters, which at the time I think was Clark and Cassie. What the freak is her last name? I can't remember. But
anyway, it's all good. Just say it with confidence.
Like night one, Collison. That's what it was. No, we're still good friends. Night one, I get a call. The sisters call in to like report their junk, and I think Clark had just gotten there. And if I'm telling the story wrong, Colson, you can fix it in the comments. But Clark had just got there, and she wanted to call home. And I was like, it was like day one as a district leader. I'm like, well, I mean, that's not going to happen. So is there any other way we can?
This is 2018.
And I don't even have a car. Like we have like I'm like, I can't even get to you. Like there's no way. What is this? It's good. And so I basically just tell her no, and I hang up, and I think Treff called me after he kind of made his rounds, so I ended up talking to him at like 10 o'clock or something. And I think he was the one that told me, he's like, oh yeah, she called president and he let her call home. And I'm like, so night one, I'm like, I feel like this position is supposed to have some impact and people are just going to do what they want. I have no control.
Is this just for titling? Or is this just like we have to report that there is a person in this role?
As a zone leader with a Seth Losser in your world, it feels to me like that might be complicated in the sense that, I mean, was there weight to that responsibility for you? Like, did you feel some kind? I mean, you were very
zone leader,
engaged.
or?
Yeah, as zone leader. Like, you were very engaged with us. So I was guessing, in the same sense that you said training, you were just like, this kid's eternal salvation is resting on me. It feels like you probably had that. You carried that throughout your mission.
Well, I think the advantage I had was that I was in the office, and so before I was really in any position of leadership. I guess I was a district leader when I was with Collinson, but again, I was like. The office elders were in our district, you know, it was like us, Mount Lebanon in the office, you know, so like, again, it was like, okay. But, so I got to see all of that from the other side of the lens before I actually had to do it. And so I saw a lot of good and bad and kind of went into it with that knowledge. And having worked with President Cameron in the office and learning his patience and his tolerance, not for inappropriate things. I vividly remember when he found out about the people unplugging the speedometer. Oh, that was bad. So he was tolerant of the right things, you know, and I felt like that kind of gave me a way to approach my role as zone leader. I think if I'd gone straight into it from my pretty rigid training episode where I'm hiding the food, I think that would have been a much different zone leader interaction. And that's why hopefully I came into it with a little bit more cohesive or inviting. And
you were just very real, and you were, you kind of, I feel like of all the zone leader experiences I had, which was like Treff, which was great, Palmer, I don't remember them all, but you were just a very service-oriented zone leader, in the sense that my memory and traumatic as it is, I went out with Losser, and I think you and Lanier just cleaned our apartment.
I didn't remember that at all.
Disaster.
I didn't remember that at all until you guys were talking about it with Seth, and I'm like, I don't remember this at all. But now I totally remember it. I remember. I was like, in that shower. Remember that shower?
I didn't know how bad it was until you explained it to me.
We pulled that death trap up. But yeah. Well, I think I mean, I don't need to keep digressing, but like, I think that was one of the things I learned from my dad was that like even when he was sick and ill, like he was still like huge on service, and I think that's kind of where that came from because I've never been able to sit still. Like I've always got something else gonna happen next, and it's like I think I kind of got that from this urgency of life and living life, but also like when you got nothing else to do, like just do it. Like we're sitting there, I think we were waiting for you guys because you had an appointment and we didn't. Yeah. And I was like, well, let's just do it. Like, what else are we going to do? You know, like, especially on the mission, you're like, well, what else are we going to do? Like, you know, I've already read the Ensign 6 times. You know, like, what are we going to do? So, I just find that service is so easy with such a big impact. Like yesterday, sorry, I'm getting all congested again. You know, it's just like things in the hospital, like someone needs a blanket, you know, I go get them a blanket. They're like, what are you doing? We have people for that. What do you mean you have someone for the blanket? Like, I'm a person too, you know? Like, so, I don't know, just try to.
I feel like specific to missionary life, even though I guess this does sort of spread to all areas of life, and maybe even American kind of sociocultural attitude now, life is exhausting. And it's really nice to just sit and not think and not do anything and maybe even just take a nap or whatever, and what you're expressing
You should try that.
is the counter sentiment to that, but how much better would this world be if you were president? You know what I mean? Like, if just a person with that much intellectual or just energy, like that much oomph, that much go get 'em. I mean, do you sleep good at night, or do you just not need sleep? You just
You check see how many hours I got last night in deep sleep. I mean, I did go running at midnight, but I don't know. I just feel like I don't know what it is, but like, I mean, well, let's be honest. Like, both my parents are gone. Both of them had serious health problems. Like, I don't know when I'm going. I gotta do it while I can.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
That's why I got 4 triathlons scheduled in the next 6 months. I don't know when I'm gonna be able to stop, you know? Like, you gotta, like, do what you can, and,
how you feeling about your life? Are you feeling like you've done everything that you meant to do? Are there any, like, bucket lists or just stuff that you're like, man, I need to make time for that?
Well, so I finally got my first job 3 years ago. So I figure that's a good achievement.
But it's not a job. It's not like you just, like, got an application from the front desk and filled it out. Like, you got your career. Like, your first job was...
But it's like, I was talking to my wife about this the other day. Like, sometimes it's like you're so in the process of life that you forget to, like, step back and be like, oh, here's where we are. Like, that's kind of cool. Like, we got somewhere. But, like, for us, we're like, you know, we're just like, we've been pounding the pavement for the last, 10 years, and like to come back here to Phoenix kind of like has brought it full circle, because it's like we were here before and now we're here and in a totally different position. We have more kids, we have, a different dog and a whole different other life around it. You know what I mean? And so it's like, it is kind of cool to look back, and I don't know that I have any missing bucket list items. I mean, there's things I want to do with my life, but like, I'm so like in the moment of like what I'm doing right now that like, I don't even look 10 years down the road. Like, my wife keeps asking me, she's like, what do you want to do in 10 years? I'm like, I don't know, what are we doing tomorrow? Like, I got to get through this and this and this, I got this race coming up and I got this job thing coming up. Like, I'll figure it out after that, and it's like, and there's things I want to do, but at the same time, like, I'm feeling satisfied with where I'm at right now. I want to see my kids at certain places in their life, get to where they want to get, but at the same time, like, I don't know. I don't mean to be all, like, grim, but, like, I don't feel like I'm going to live forever. Like, looking at my parents, like, neither of them have lived long lives.
Yeah.
I feel like I have pretty questionable genes that, like, who knows what's going to happen. And, like, that's the thing I learned from my dad is, like, he spent that 5 years that he knew he was going to die, like, teaching me everything that he could. And it's like, so I'm going to teach my kids everything I can right now. I'm going to try to do everything that I can right now. And what I've done is what I've done, and I'm good with it. I don't have, like, this list of things I'm going to get to later.
Does that make you some level of, like, hypochondriacal? Like, are you constantly testing yourself for every level of any possible thing just to try to stay ahead of what might go wrong with you so that you can actually, like...
Yeah. So, I mean, my mom, like, her nerve problem, like, it starts as, like, a small little nerve symptom, So it's like every time, like, I drop something, I'm like, is that because I'm losing strength? Is that going to... But at the same time, I'm like, either way, I'm not going to be able to fix it if it is. We'll find out in a couple months. We'll see if it progresses. We'll see if it recurs. But, like, at the same time, I'm like, it'll be okay. Like, it is what it is. I think I analyze things a lot. Like, when I do a lot of these endurance activities. And so, like, when I'm running, especially on, like, a treadmill, I'm sitting there for a couple hours on a treadmill just, like, analyzing everything sometimes. But it's not necessarily because I'm, like, hypochondriacal. It's more because I'm, like, I know what's going on physiologically, structurally, and so I'm, like, thinking about these things. Probably like what a mechanic would do when they are driving and listening to their engine and listening to all these different sounds and things. But I don't think it's, like, in a negative, pessimistic, hypochondriacal way. It's kind of just more like a awareness kind of thing.
Wow.
Like, I'm not, like, like, doomsday-ish at all. Like, I'm fine with living till I'm 90, as long as I'm able to do stuff. But like at the same time, I'm like, I'm cool with like living my life to do the best that I can with the time that I have right now.
So unless I'm over insinuating what you just said, like if you were ever in a situation of being like in a vegetative state, you'd just be like, pull the plug. I don't want to live like this. I don't want to live unless I can live, unless I can communicate, unless I can,
be of value.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm not opposed to the idea of value being a lot of different things, but at the same time, I've seen people that are just being prolonged in their life, for whatever reason. I remember as a med student, I would round on this guy in the ICU that was on a ventilator for 3 years. Like in the ICU because he couldn't go anywhere else. Like he couldn't go to a long-term care facility. And it was because family was not willing to like do anything different than what was currently being done. So this guy's in the ICU racking up $10,000, $20,000 daily hospital bills, for like nothing. This guy's life is over. Like he has no brain function. We're literally just watering a plant, that's not growing. And like I would never want to be in that situation. If there's any value to something, like because I do a lot with ALS right now. I work with this group to do fundraising and things for ALS, and so we meet a lot of people with ALS that are severely debilitated but alive and living and still contributing great things. And so if that's the case, then do that, because I think in that setting you have a voice. Even if it's not a literal voice, you have a power. And I see so many people that can still do so much good with that, and I'm fine with that. But at the same time, like, you see people that are just being traumatized by keeping them alive, and that's not something that I would want. I don't have like a "do not resuscitate" tattoo on my chest like some people come into the emergency department with. They're very clear, like, don't even try. Like, but like at the same time, like I have such an acceptance of death that like I respect it, and I also respect that spot just this side of death where you're not really living, but you're not dead either.
Yeah.
And I don't believe that I personally want to stay in that zone forever.
Mm-hmm.
Does that answer your question?
Very much. This has been fun. I feel like we tackled pretty much all the stuff that I wanted to tackle. I don't know. What do you want to say to the world?
That's just me in a nutshell.
This document will be on the internet forever.
I don't know. And maybe, like we started out, like I feel like I'm just, I mean, all of our life is what it is. Like it's our version of it, But it's like, I feel like I've taken an atypical path to where I've gotten, but I like it because it's who I am.
Which is rare. I mean, so many people, and to some degree myself included, like, never do the things that they want to do. They just kind of fall into some conformist plot that was, fed into them by whatever, or are just too scared to do the things that they're capable of and that might actually make them happy. And so it's rare to, and in your case, I have sort of just fallen into it. I mean, it doesn't sound like there was a ton of pressure. Anybody pushing you?
No, I mean, it was never like, this is the family business. This is what you're doing. This is not, like, and it was just kind of like, I mean, I don't know if I fell into it. I think I more got like ping ponged into it. Like, I kind of like, it's like when a baby's walking and like hitting one wall and the next wall, and then eventually they kind of like start straightening it out. But that's the process, and it's like that process is sometimes painful when you're in the moment of it, but it's so valuable. Like, and we all have that process, we all have gone through those stumbles, those bumps, those different things, and they're different for everybody. For me, it was perhaps my parents and my, some of these other things we've talked about and some other stuff, but it's like, for somebody else, it's something totally different. Mm-hmm. But like, the product is who you become. Mm-hmm. And those relationships that you then develop and progress, and the things you do with it. Because I'm a big fan of like not ignoring those things either, and it's not like, and that's what I love about my job is that a lot of times I don't love my job, but one of the things I love about my job is we're like kind of this safety net for humanity. Yeah. Like, if you can call that, like the medicine, sometimes doctors think they have this God complex. I kind of have more of this doormat complex where I'm just like this doormat that you come walk on, and like I'm there all the time. Like, you know, we don't close the emergency department, you know, and so it's like we're there for whatever. And sometimes it's because someone is having a heart attack. Sometimes it's because someone thinks they're having a heart attack and they're having a panic attack, and sometimes it's because someone is suicidal. And I mean, we're there for this whole gamut of things, and it's like all of these things that I've experienced in my life come out in that. I don't necessarily share these things with them, but it changes the way that I approach these people. And it changes the way that I perhaps say something, or perhaps the way I don't say something and just listen to something. And it's like, those are the things that like you can't discredit when it's hard to value them when they happen, but like they have such a value down the road. And I think the key thing is when you're down the road to still use those experiences and not let them go to waste. But
it almost sounds like, I was thinking as you were talking about the ways that I have engaged with religion and with the church because of how it was fed to me and because of how I was brought up to interact with it.
Yep.
And then when I got out in the world and I got married in the temple, and then it didn't work out because I wasn't ready, and
that's
nobody
the bumper
was,
you hit. That was your bumper.
You would think so, but I feel like things got so much more complex and so much weirder from there. And then leaving the church for a bunch of years and then coming back to it, like my perspective of it is so incredibly liberal, which doesn't actually match up or link up with the way almost anybody else talks about it, including church leadership. And yet, in a way that back then, that attitude caused me to just leave it. Now I'm just like, I belong to this thing, and belonging to it doesn't mean that I have to accept every facet of it. I think my journey at this point is kind of more interesting because it's like, I think I'm just going to put this entire system through the ringer of my analytical mind, and I'm gonna try to prove it not true. I'm going to try to prove to myself that the things that I have gone about the process of having some sort of spiritual experience about, I'm going to try to really wring the towel out and be like, where are there inconsistencies? Where are there instabilities in this sort of thing? And at the same time, utilizing church services, utilizing temple worship and that sort of thing, to just sort of meditate and try to open myself to the space and idea of God and try to let divinity communicate with me under the impression that Joseph Smith at least believes that he saw what he saw and built and constructed something pretty profound and a really interesting perspective of the biblical Christian idea of, you know, Jesus and salvation and heaven and hell and all that sort of thing. But that in the same way that, like, Mormonism, we look at, like, you know, Buddha or Muhammad or things like that as not correct.
Yeah.
That I think I've started to put Joseph Smith more in a box of, no, he's just one of them. He was a messenger that was sent with a message that has a ton of truth and has a ton of valuable things in it, and this really rich worship system attached to it that all has value, but not better or worse than what was built in any one of these other places. And so I'm gonna go on this weird mystical journey to try to put my arms around all of it, to see if I can figure out a way to absorb ideas of, like, reincarnation or just all these different
things,
religious and theological ideas and themes. It's almost like, you know, like,
there's a lot of stuff there.
I think it's all true. I think all of it's true, and I think I want to figure out a way, while sitting my butt in Mormonism and choosing to use this as sort of my temple, sort of just the place that I go to worship and to offer my sacraments and my tithes and all that. I'm going to then listen to and absorb just as many ideas as I can possibly get my hands on under the assumption, I mean, even including, like, evolution, to just think that, like, okay, fine, 65 million years this Earth has been around. True. how do I plug that in to the symbolic presentation of 6,000 years of creation? And then it's that journey where I'm like, it's all true. Now, how do I put the puzzle together?
Well, and filtering out the parts that are perhaps obscuring and hiding some of the true features that make it somewhat, on face value, clearly discountable. But really, there's something there, perhaps. But you gotta extract that out.
Yeah.
And then put it in its part in the right place, and finding where it all fits up in that thing.
I mean, on some level, I feel like it's a dangerous journey. On some level, I feel like it's
a lot of vulnerability in there.
What was insinuated in what Lehi saw as the people wandering off into the midst of darkness. And I feel like all I can really do is accept that might be what I'm doing, and then trust myself and trust God that He didn't put me down here to fail, and that He knows me well enough to know that this is the level of crazy I would aspire to. And so it's almost like it's like hanging on to God through the atonement.
Yeah.
That's obviously the only way we get home. So the only hope I have is submitting to the gift that was, while also being Captain, religiously crazy and just be like.
Well, I think the key thing is the awareness of what you're doing. And where you want to be at the end, and knowing that.
But even that's the end as I see it now is just what I was taught. So the idea that maybe that's even wrong.
Yeah.
Maybe
you should start with that. Figure out what the end is for you, and then figure out the road back.
But how could I know it if the ingredients of what the end is exists as a part of this of all these. Bread. It's basically like the breadcrumbs to get back to,
wherever.
Hansel and Gretel's house or whatever, are all over the earth. It's not like all the breadcrumbs just got dumped in an LDS temple. Like, they're everywhere. And so I'm out there collecting all of them and scooping them all together. And so...
Just trying to figure out what order they were laid
Right.
down.
It's basically like Celestial Kingdom. Not a false idea. However, the Buddhist traditions of transcendence and different things, how do all of those contribute to and enrich the idea that it's that, and it's I acknowledge that it's, I don't know, kind of like intellectually jumping out of the plane, but I don't know. It just feels. I guess I've just encountered some pain and some disappointments in the realm of following God, following the Spirit, going down roads, and then it didn't work out the way that I really felt like it was supposed to, like He intended it to, and it just it rocked me in a doubt sector hard enough that I was just like. It saddens me to sit in a Mormon church week after week after week after week and in the temple week after week and wait for an answer. I'm done waiting. I'm going to take what this thing gives me and I'm going to go out in the world and I'm just going to start looking and I'm going to see what else is out there. It's my own little search, the theory of everything. Now I'm going to go out now. I understood the promises of this in a certain way, and they failed me in a way that I didn't expect, and it was a disappointment that was kind of hard to swallow. So my self-actualized response to that is to just be like, okay, well I'll keep my membership card active over here, and I'm just gonna start, visiting other locations and just seeing what else is out there because I'm not sure that this is the complete picture. Based on my experience within it.
You understand?
Maybe I'm wrong, though.
I don't have an answer, but I got what
Part of me hopes I'm wrong. Part of me hopes.
Well, I think like you said, there's truth in everything. There's also, corruption in everything, and it's a matter of sorting those two and then trying to compile as much of the truth with the least amount of the corruption. But it's just like everything. There's a risk and a benefit. There's a positive and a negative, and everything is trying to maximize the good.
It's literally the cost-benefit analysis of my salvation.
Small details. Small details.
How bananas is that? I don't know. I guess on some level I wouldn't roll the dice if I wasn't somewhat comfortable with it, so okay. I'll just roll the dice and do that. Well, thanks for taking the time, man.
Absolutely.
It means a lot.
Thanks for this. This is good.
It's fun.
I've never talked this much about my life or my anything.
Really?
It's good.
Oh, good. Well, then I'm glad on a lot of levels that this document exists. Like, your kids in 10 years or whatever are going to be like,
Who was that guy? Yeah, that's who he was. Huh.
dope.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.